Who are you and where are you from?
I'm Jason Wright. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I'm a man who has learned things the hard way, by the grace of God. Actually, it's been interesting. I come across a lot of guys. I'm somewhat of a leader of men in what I do, and I've got a podcast, and been able to kind of draw a lot of guys into my circle through my story, and that's why I think there's such power in sharing your testimony, because it's yes, it's a benefit to you, like this is healing for me, but it's even more healing knowing that it's going to help somebody else, and being in that position, I'll circle back to kind of what got me there, but being able to be seen by other men as a leader, somebody they look up to or respect or aspire to be more like, that's all I've ever wanted. And it's very interesting how God has worked in a way to put me in that position to where, for what you've always been seeking, I'm going to make you for others. And that hole that's been in your heart, I'm going to fill it with the love of Christ again and with purpose. And it's for so long, that's what I've always wanted. I wanted to live a life of purpose. I wanted to be significant. I wanted to leave a legacy. I just didn't know how to do it. And the way that I was going, it was actually leaving the wrong legacy, right? Like I was being known for the wrong things. And that struck a lot at my pride, my ego. And it's crazy the dark places that you go to when you're in that space of just seeking significance, seeking recognition and validation, because I never got it, right? I never got it in ways that I could feel it or see it day to day. Right? Like my dad wasn't there. Parents divorced at a young age. It was a volatile household. There was a lot of emotional, physical abuse, alcohol abuse, and I saw a lot of what men shouldn't be, and I'm thankful for that opportunity to have learned, because I could have been just like him. I could have gone down that path. But here's the thing: is that in a lot of ways I did, but then in a lot of the ways that I thought were the most important, I didn't. Like, didn't ever want to be a physical aggressor towards a female. I didn't want to put a woman down. I didn't want to abandon a family or anything like that, out of my own selfish ambition, right? But in a lot of ways I was selfish because I was seeking validation and acceptance from others, right? And especially you want companionship, you want acceptance, you want love, and typically as guys we go to women for that. And for me it became a conquest, especially my 20s. It was a conquest, it was a challenge, right? Like I needed to prove to myself that I was good enough to be wanted when it felt like no one else wanted me. Or if I was only gonna gain love, it had to be through meeting a lot of criteria, right? Like I had to do this right, I had to succeed, I had to achieve something, I had to be seen as good or somebody respectable, in order to be praised, right? In order to be loved and accepted. And for me, in a lot of ways, it came not just from others, but especially from women. And that led me into, I was in a long-term relationship. We were engaged. She had a son. And I think in a lot of ways, when I entered into that in my early to mid-20s, I was really trying to fulfill that role that I think I wished I'd always had. And being able to be that man that could be there for a single mom and her son. And I never had that. But that led me to do it for the wrong reasons, right? Like I wasn't there really for love. I was there to love myself and to feel better about myself. And what that did was over 10 years, like that was not a relationship led by God. I didn't lead. In fact, I was passive. I was just hoping to kind of be led along the way. And I fell into a lot of traps, right? I fell into a lot of traps, and eventually led to me being unfaithful because I just wanted out. I just wanted out, and I didn't have the strength to be able to end it like a man should. Just sit down and say, hey, we know where this is going. It's not anywhere productive. We need to part ways. I didn't have the strength to do that. So I was a coward, and I ran and I cheated. And I was a married woman, and I think Vince has talked about this, is that, you know, once you're found out, right, all that shame and guilt and everything like that you've been hiding, it comes out, and it's just like a breath of fresh air, like a weight's been lifted. But the pain that was placed in my life because of how much I hurt them, that's where I felt the worst, was seeing the collateral damage and knowing that I let a lot of people down when my whole selfish ambition the whole time was to try and be seen as the guy that could be relied on and that could lift them up and make them know that I'm their savior. And there was a quote by a pastor one time that had come out and said, you know, if you don't kneel before the Lord, then somehow something's going to happen where your knee is bent for you. And that's exactly what happened. You know, over the course of my lifetime, I was raised in the church, but I never really knew God, right? Like, I was a Christian from a young age, but I hadn't been a Christ follower till really about a year ago, with the way I decided to live my life, lead my life and others. And being able to go through a lot of those hardships and that growth and the low points that came after the reality hit of what I'd done and the impact that it made and what that did to my life, right? I was still selfish at that time, but I was starting to open my eyes more, like the scales were starting to fall off. And God moved in me, right? There was one day where I think the initial sigh of relief of it being over felt good, and getting caught felt good because I'm free of this, right? But probably a few months pass by and the reality sets in, and that high is gone, and you're settling into the reality of it all. And it was like, my life is not what I thought it was going to be. I'm not who I thought I was, and now I'm going to be who everyone else thinks that I am. And that was like the trifecta. And I got to this point where I was just screaming out. I was filled with so much anger, so much rage, and it was towards God, it was towards myself, it was towards my ex, it was towards anybody that I could find. And there was one morning I was driving to work, and I was on the interstate, and the thought just, it crept in my mind, and it said, you should just take the car into that cliff that's off the side of the road, full speed. You're not meant for this, right? You don't have the strength to deal with this, obviously. You're broken down. So it's going to be easier to escape than it is to stick around. And I think that was a real turning point, that God pulled me to the side of the road, but it was to stop, and it wasn't to accelerate. And in that moment, he told me to get on the phone and call somebody that's important to me. And they're like, hey man, you need to go call somebody, set up some appointment, meet with me, whatever. Like, we need to talk. You need to be around people that care about you. And from that point on, like, gradually I fought back this first few years of, all right, I give myself to God. I invite you into my life again. Christ, like, lead me, because doing it my way clearly doesn't work. And so I submit myself to you. Like, I was down on my knees, crying, screaming out to God, weeping, right? And it was interesting to see just how blessed I became in that moment, because then all of a sudden, just the bricks, the new foundation was starting to be laid. And again, like I said, I tried to fight back. I tried to still kind of do things my own way. Like, I needed God to get me out of the pit, but kind of once I got to the first step or two out, then I was like, man, I did good getting to that step. Look at me, like I'm doing great. All right, man, I crushed. I got this. And then there I go again. Like, I'm my own God now at this point again. And I no longer was looking to the God. And sure enough, just like over time, you think you're doing good, and then as long as you're still making it about you, then you're going to constantly be reminded that that doesn't work that way, right? And so I fully submitted after a couple years of going down the wrong path. Again, more married women. It was destructive, right? It was very self-destructive, and it was a clear sign to me, and it really came out during the pandemic and the lockdowns of, I had to spend more time with myself than I was ever comfortable spending alone. I never wanted to be alone. And in those moments of solitude, that's where God spoke to me the loudest, because I was confronted with things that I wanted to run away from. And that birthed the podcast, that birthed that leadership role amongst other men that I've never met before. And just to see the emails that come in, like a lot of guys don't know this, like each email that comes in, like I read it and I cry at the beauty of it, because I'm not supposed to be here. And I wasn't meant for this. Who am I to lead other men? I'm a fraud, I'm a failure. And why am I being put in a position to where others are supposed to look to me? What if I get found out? Right? Like that was the next fear. What if I get found out? And the exasperation that comes from trying to run from that, and just constantly trying to run and hide and stay about 5 steps ahead from everybody, so they can't see my face. So they're just trying to catch up to my steps and get where I'm at, but they don't have to see what I'm gone through and what I'm going through. So fast forward and come to the place where I'm at now, in that God has blessed me and saved me more times than I'll ever deserve. And that's the great thing about it, is the grace that he's given me, and extended to me that hand to reach out for help. Whenever I've tried to pull myself up out of that hole, he's always had that hand right there. And once I was finally willing to take it, now I still struggle, like I'm still a man, I'm still human, I'm still faulty, I still get prideful, I still start thinking that I'm the man at times, and I pray hard regularly to be freed from that, and to just be submissive and to be used as a tool for God. Because now the message has been set in deep enough to where I understand it's not me. I can't do it myself. I can't do it without him. And it's not even what I do. It's about what he does and who he is. And that's the only reason why I'm here. That's the only reason why I'm happily and excitedly engaged to be married to the love of my life in a Christ-focused relationship that I never thought was possible, but always hoped for and prayed for. And that's because I totally just submitted and surrendered to the guilt and the shame of the past, and have fearfully but trustingly and more willingly accepted the role that he wants me to play in this earthly life while we're here. And I can't be more grateful to guys like Vince, right, who are way ahead of me in this process of being leaders of men, and does it in his own way that I'll never be able to do. And that's the beauty of it. I think that's fantastic. We all need more leaders, right? We all need more examples. It can't just be one of us. It has to be all of us. And that starts with leadership of ourselves, right? Once we become better leaders of ourselves, then we can become better leaders of others. But it's that daily struggle of, how do I lead myself better? And it's only through God. That's the only reason why I'm still here. That's the only reason why I'm living a life that is not just worth living, but I'm excited to live, because I know that this isn't the end goal, but I'm wanting to enjoy more of the purpose of why he's got me here while I'm here. And that's the most important part.
What are you most excited about?
The future. While in a time that it seems like everything's kind of going further away, like the people are going further away from God, further away from Christ and the gospel and what that does for us, it's I've never been more excited for being able to live in a purpose that I feel like he's placed in my life, and being able to lead not just myself and other men, but to lead a wife and to lead children and to raise them up in God. Not because it's what I think is best or what I'm about or how good I'm a parent or a husband or whatever that's to be, but it's more about like, God, use me as your vessel. Use me to lead my family. And I'm excited for that responsibility. I'm no longer afraid of it. I was afraid and I tried to hide from it for a long time. It's what I wanted, but I was never man enough, I felt like, to want to embrace it like I am now.
When are you getting married?
May 5th.
Tell me about your fiance.
Man, she's she's awesome. Um, she is the most godly woman that I could have ever prayed for. She is selfless. She is so loving and so kind. She's so strong yet so gentle. And she's in her own journey. She just recently became a Christian. She was baptized in December. She was raised in a Buddhist household, went to Lutheran schools, Catholic schools, all across, and she was seeking purpose and direction too. And God put us together, no doubt, 100% put us together. Because we were in similar points of our journey of growth in Him, healing from the wounds that we were self-inflicted, and that He brought us together. And she's everything that I've ever dreamt of and more. And I hated it to say that I've never fully respected a woman before until I met her.
What's her name?
Christine. Yeah. In fact, there's a lot of about who she is and what she is that inspires me to want to be more like her. And it's always my prayer that I continue to be more the man that she needs, so that I can lead her. Because none of us can do it alone, and we can't do it without God. And it's like there's, this diagram of there's God at the top, and then there's us on each end of the triangle down here, and that the further we are from Him, the further we are from each other. And the way she's living her life, trying to get closer to God, and the way I'm constantly trying to get closer to God, we're just meeting up closer at the top. And that's really the great thing. I've been in relationships before where I've been trying, like, I think I'm on fire, right? Like, I think I want to get to know God again, and they're just like, no, that's no. And in me, foolishly, instead of like, all right, well, maybe this isn't gonna work out, right? Like, if I can't work in them or work on them, it just made me question, how much am I really wanting that better for them, or am I just selfishly wanting to be with somebody that's going to give me attention? And this is totally different. This is totally different, and I know that this is what God intended a marriage to be, and I'm pumped. I'm pumped. We're like 2 months out. I'm pumped.
Tell me about your dad.
Yeah, my relationship with my dad is tough, because I'm now at this point where I feel like it's guilt from me that I'm not doing more to reach out to him, because in recent years he's tried to reach out to me, and it's like my walls are still too high up and too thick to be willing to like let him back in and still feel strong enough to not go back to where I was before in those old painful moments of feeling not good enough, or feeling like a failure, or feeling like I was a disrespectful piece of crap, like he would always call me. There was a lot of, he wanted respect, right? He commanded respect, but did nothing to earn it. And when you see a man who beats his wife, beats his kids, drinks himself into oblivion, steals your kids' pain pills after they have a ear tube placement to help with the pain because his neck hurts or his back hurts or whatever, I lost a lot of respect for him early on, and I think that made me very wary of trusting men and what a man is, and everything I saw about how to be a man I had to learn kind of from my mom. I didn't have anybody to model that for me. When the truth is, the whole time I did, right, is in scripture, but I felt like it was harder for me not having an earthly father that I could love and confide in and feel close to and trust. How am I supposed to trust this guy that I've never met, who's not here, like in the physical? I've not seen him, but I felt it, and he's been there, right? But it's that battle, that conflict of, all right, I want a better relationship with the father, but I don't know what a relationship with a father is like. And so it was tough. There was a lot of back and forth custody battles and things like that, every other weekend visitations, and we were put in interesting situations, to say the least, that weren't always the safest, but again, he was a man who was living for the flesh. He was living for himself, and it was about selfish ambition and anxiety, anxiety about being seen as somebody that's not successful, or somebody that's attractive, or somebody that's good with the ladies, or what. Like that was what he was about. And I just never felt close to him, and I never could. And I felt like the closer I tried to get to him, the further he pushed me away. Right? Like there would be something done that would hurt me and cut me to my core, and create this wound. And the wound festered for a long time. And it took many years of him kind of having a near-death experience. Several years ago, after a routine outpatient procedure, got a bad infection, ended up in the ICU, CCU for a couple weeks. And so I thought maybe it's time to reconcile. And so I did. Things got really good. We had a closer relationship. We stayed in touch. We talked more. I tried to make more of an effort to call him. He tried to call me more. But then my brother's wedding happened, and then kind of same old dad showed up. Like he was drunk off his butt, trying to be the life of the party, trying to be the center of attention, because the spotlight was on my brother, it wasn't on him. And that triggered me. It bothered me, because he was trying to get me to like run around and meet all these women that he was trying to introduce me to. And at the time I was an engaged man. Like it's like I'm not happily engaged, but I'm committed to somebody, right? Because that's what I'm supposed to do. Kind of contradicts the prior story about infidelity, but it's where it's at on the journey, right? It's like you never think you'll do it until you do it. And him kind of doing that, I kept saying, Dad, we're not the same, right? And you can't resent me because I don't want to be like you. And it ended up with almost a physical altercation at the end of the night, because he wanted to keep partying, he wanted to keep going. I wanted to go to bed. I had a flight the next morning that was early. I wanted to catch it. I'm not there for women and meeting people and having fun. I was there for my brother, and I'd fulfilled that role, and it was time to go home. And we got in each other's face, and he's the type of man that if I carried it out, he would press charges. So I thank God he stepped in, interceded in that moment, and prevented me from laying hands on him, even though the temptation was there. The heart rate was racing. After it's over with, you close the door, and you're like trying to catch your breath because it catches up to you, the adrenaline. And I've tried, we've tried to be more civil, but I've had to learn I can't have a close relationship with him as my father. I love him because he is my father, but that doesn't mean it has to be a close relationship, because it's too painful, and it becomes too conflicted, and then there's separation after that. So if we can keep like a healthy distance. But I think it's important, though. I have really tried, and I felt really convicted actually in recent months to try to do more to kind of clean that up, because he's getting older, right? Like any day, like we'd be getting a call that like, hey, your dad fell or had a heart attack, whatever. Then he's not here, and the guilt that can come from that. I know it's bad enough with him alive. It's going to be even worse knowing that I'll never have the chance. So I need to make amends with that.
How has God healed that?
God's healed that in a way that make me feel like it's okay to do it, right? Like almost like there's an invitation to have the relationship with your father that you've hoped for, or at least attempt to, because ultimately God's the father relationship that I need to keep seeking. That it's okay that whatever's happened has happened, and I would not be where I'm at now feeling extremely blessed had it not been for that, right? Those aches and those pains and those hardships and those hard lessons, learning the hard way. Even when I knew what the easy way was, I still wanted to learn it the hard way by my choices and my actions. And yeah, God has healed it. I have a peace about it. I think is probably the shortest answer to give, is that I have more peace about the relationship with my dad, even knowing that it's strained, that it's not close, but I feel peace about it because I have a father that loves me unconditionally. He's not here, but as long as I continue to seek him in that relationship with the real father, then my earthly father, God's going to take care of that.
For the guy that still is living the lifestyle that you once lived, what would you say to him?
It's not impossible to turn it around, to go in that direction that you feel pulled to go into. That voice that whispers in your ear when you're trying to fall asleep at night, to say, hey, there's something better you could be doing than living for yourself. Lean into that voice and pray to God. Say, God, I don't understand what you're doing for me now. I might not even feel close to you right now. But God, I pray that you help me to eventually be able to listen when you speak and to follow that. And to know that trying to do things your own way never ends well. It never does. And if you're where I was in that spot, you've already learned before it doesn't go well. But just that ego, right? That ego and that pride keeps driving you to try and fix it yourself. It never gets better. It only gets worse. It just might look a little different each time, but it still ends the same way every single time. So if you're tired of living in that cycle, that roller coaster of highs and lows, cut out the lows. Stop trying to do it alone, right? Do it with God. Seek the Bible and seek brotherhood with other men that are trying to go where you're going, or they might already be further ahead in their journey, right? It's not an ultimate goal or finish line to cross. It's a constant, daily, intentional effort that's made. And the more you try to do it yourself, the worse it's going to get.